Hey fellow garden gnomes, this is Brittany. Welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited to get this video out to you guys. It's been a long time coming. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the GrowVeg garden planner. First things first, this is not sponsored. I haven't been asked by the company to do this. I've been using this software for a little over a year now, and I just find it really useful. And so I just really want to share a full tutorial. If I seem a little more collected than I normally do in my videos, that's only because I've actually written a script for this video. This is the first time I've written a script, but because this program is so rich with features, I wanted to make sure that I was presenting them to you in a cohesive way. What you see here is the home page for GrowVeg. You can access it by typing www.growveg.com into your address bar. Up on the right here, we'll tell you a little bit about the company. As you scroll down, you'll find some featured articles. They have a lot of great gardening related articles, and you'll find even more in the guide section. They also have some great videos. The journal is basically a brand new feature. It's not going to be released until spring 2018. From what I can see, it's going to be compatible with the planner, and it's basically going to be a diary / record. But this video is all about the planner, so let's just get into it. So if you wanted to start a free trial or check out the subscriptions, you could go here. I'm going to go straight to start the garden planner. On this page, you also have options to start an account or try out the garden planner. I highly recommend doing the 7-day free trial. Even if after this tutorial you think this is going to work for you, it's always awesome to try before you buy. I'm going to go ahead and log in. So on your right, you see that you can go into your account settings, you can log out, you could subscribe or view your account status. That's kind of a neat feature because you can see how many days are left in your subscription. Set your location and frost dates. If I remember correctly, it should prompt you for that information when you create your account. But basically it either asks you to put in your average last and first frost date, which you might or might not know, or it'll ask you to set your location. Now I'm not going to click on this because it actually opens up to a map and it'll show you exactly where I live. Basically it's an embedded Google Maps which lets you zoom into the area where you live and place a pin exactly where your property is. Personally, I think that's the most impressive feature of this website. By accessing your location, it's able to get all this climate data, which really helps it calculate when you can plant certain things, which, as we'll see later on in this tutorial, is really helpful. On the left, you have all your options for managing various plans, and in the middle, you have your recent plans. So let's create a plan. So I'm going to call this plan Trial 1, do year 2018. I'm going to make it 30 feet wide and 15 feet long. Width translates into horizontal along the screen and length is vertical along the screen, as you can see here. So to go through some of these options, you see here you have new plan, open plan, save plan, print plan, publish plan to web, Facebook, or Twitter, the plant list and the parts list, which I'm actually going to go into later, different editing options, select, cut, copy, paste, zoom in, zoom out, and again all months, all layers I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And then we get to drawing, which is the most basic way of putting in an outline for a garden onto this plan. You have draw a rectangle, you have draw a circle, you can even draw a triangle. I don't know whoever has triangular gardens, but the option is open. You can write text if you want. You can also delete the objects by clicking on the object and clicking on this red X. Personally, I find it a lot easier to just click on the object and then press delete on my keyboard. You also have the option of being able to draw align and curve it like this. Personally, I would not recommend doing a garden outline that involves curves just because it makes it a lot harder to get the most out of this plan because of the grid and because of the way that it shows how much space each plant needs. It's just a lot more useful if you have all rectangles. You also have the option to just paint whatever you want. So I'm going to fill the background green. If you decide that you actually want to change the size of your grid, you can go right here, plan size and grid, open it up, change it. If you want to change the line thickness of whatever you're drawing, you can go here. If you want text size difference, and if you want to access various other settings, you have this gear right here. You can change the title, change the year, and you can also delete the plan from here. So right here are two interesting options. This switches it to square foot gardening mode. If I take arugula, you can see it doesn't necessarily fit completely into the square footage. But if I delete that and go to square foot gardening method, press OK, and put arugula again, it automatically creates something that fits into the square foot. And you can see that it says 16, meaning that 16 plants of arugula can fit into this 1 square foot. Personally, I prefer it without square foot gardening mode, but if you're already a fan of the square foot gardening method, you might like that. Companion planting, I'll show that actually a bit later. And so now I'm going to show you how you can set up the foundation of your plan. So you can see here they have plants, vegetables, herbs, fruits, nuts, but they also have garden objects. So I'm going to go to layout here. I can choose one of these containers here. I basically just click it and then click it again like a stamp. I can alter the shape, make it longer, make it wider, and in the middle here it shows you the square footage that you're making it. Another option, if you have a particular size in mind, is you double click and then you put in the size that you want. So maybe I want 3 by 5. Okay, there we go. And then here's where it's handy to be able to use the copy and paste, because instead of having to take the container, stamp it, and then draw it out to the size that I want, I can just click copy, click paste, and there I have an exact copy, and then I could do 6 or 7 of these if that's what I wanted to set out on my plan. Other options, I can put pathways. Different pathway options have different widths, but you can't alter the width, you can only alter the length. This brick is a lot thinner, so you'll have to do some experimenting really and see what you like. I can also put a pond, which is pretty neat. If you have planter bags or potato sacks, they even have options like raised bed covers. Now when you go to structures, I think this is where it gets really cool, because say you have some beehives in your backyard or you want to put them next to your garden, you're able to see how they'll fit. You can also, of course, change the shape. You can also put a chicken coop. Comes with a chicken feeder, a chicken water, and a chicken run. You could put a compost bin. So it's pretty neat actually, because it has a lot of options, including greenhouses, fruit cages, hoop house, all kinds of cool stuff that really lets you customize your plan and make it actually fit what your backyard looks like. So for the next portion of this tutorial, I'm actually going to go to my trial 2 where I already have a foundation set up. So you can see here I have my raised beds, my pathways, potato sacks, I have a shed, my little chicken coop and beehives. So now I'm going to start placing plants. I'm going to start by going into my fruit, and as you can see you can filter it by letter. I'm going to go with raspberry. So you click once on raspberry and then you click again on the plan, and it's basically like a stamp, and then you can drag it. And the reason it's showing more than one raspberry plant as I drag it is because the purpose of this little cloud here is to show you how much square footage this plant actually takes up. So in this case, this raspberry plant takes up about 4 square feet. And if I wanted 2 raspberry plants, well, that takes up almost 12 square feet. Now this doesn't really fit that well into the space, so I'm going to try strawberries. Strawberries take up a little less space. So I can actually fit 4 strawberries into this area. I think I'm going to place a dwarf apple right here. So this dwarf apple takes about 9 square feet. If you wanted to compare that to a large apple, you see it's quite different. So another way of finding out the size of these different plants, you can click this info button, and it shows you quite a lot of interesting information, including what kind of soil it likes, different notes about when to plant, and here the spacing. A dwarf apple ideally needs 3 feet and 3 inches each way between it and any other plants. Next, I'll place some flowers. I'm going to start off by placing some bluebells. So you can see that the bluebells are quite small. Now let's look at aster, the Chinese aster. That takes up a lot more space. So about 2 plants of the Chinese aster takes up the same amount of space as 10 of the bluebells. Okay, I've got my fruit and my flowers. Now I'm going to go to vegetables. I'm going to go straight out to potatoes. I'm going to put some main crop potatoes and some early crop potatoes. So I'm going to put some broccoli here and then some kale here. So you can see about the same amount of space for 3 broccoli plants for 4 kale plants. Now that I have my corn and beans planted, I want to decide on what I want to plant beside my beans. And so for that, I'm going to use this companion planting button. I'm going to make sure that my beans are highlighted. I'm going to click this heart here, and it's going to filter the vegetables so that I just have a list of vegetables that are companion plants of beans. Now, companion plants, if you're not familiar with the term, are plants that are thought to be beneficial when planted next to other plants. And now there are a whole bunch of different sources for that kind of information. Some are more based in kind of spirituality and stuff. That's not really my cup of tea, but some of it is based in science. So certain crops deter pests that might be attracted to other crops, and so if you plant both of those crops together, then you might be able to deter some of the pests from one of the crops. GrowVeg does claim that all of its companion planting information is based on science. So now I'm going to choose an option. I think I'm going to go with some Swiss chard. I'm going to plant my asparagus here. As you're placing your lines of crops, you can also change the angle that your line is at, basically with these little circular buttons here. that are in between the squares that let you expand your row into a block. And so now I have my garden plan. So now I'm going to go back to these plant list and parts list here. If I click on parts list, it has all these structures that I had put in my plan. And so this is helpful if you haven't created your garden setup yet and you need to know what you need to buy. This just gives you a quick summary. You can also go to the plant list, which has a list of all the plants that you had placed on your plan, as well as some really helpful information. So it gives you a number so that if you're starting your own plants from seed, you know exactly how many that you're going to need to eventually put in your garden. If you're looking for a place to order seeds for these plants, this software is connected to a whole bunch of different seed companies, which is really cool. So you can click on a particular seed company and see which seeds are available from that seed company. It also gives you a summary of all the spacing, and this is where your set location comes in. This shows you when you can plant your plants and when you can expect a harvest. So blue is sowing indoors or under cover, green is sowing outdoors or transplanting out, and orange is harvest. So if we look at red cabbage, we can start sowing indoors, or I can, because this is suited to my location. So I can start sowing summer cabbage mid-March. I can start planting it out mid-April, and I should be able to expect a harvest around the start of July. What is also neat about this feature is it helps you succession plant. We want to get the most out of our garden square footage, so we want to be able to have a vegetable sown right after we've harvested. So what we can see here is, let's say we harvest all our radicchio by the end of July. Well, what can we put into the space where the radicchio was after the end of July? Well, if you see here, Swiss chard, we can still sow that outside or transplant it outside if you started seed indoors at the start of August. Go back to our plan, and you want to click on radicchio. And so what we want to say is we want to say that this radicchio is only going to be in the ground until July. So if we go over to our all months here and we click on August, oh, the radicchio is gone. So now we can get our Swiss chard, click on it, and we are going to say that this Swiss chard is only going to be in the ground starting in August. So now if we go back to May, radicchio is here, and if we go to September, Swiss chard is here. If you noticed, there is also the option to choose a variety. So say I am specifically planting bright lights Swiss chard, I can click that here, and instead of just saying Swiss chard, it says bright lights. This all layers just puts an emphasis on particular layers. As I was placing my vegetables, you might have noticed the different colors around them showing how much space they take up. So you see here pink around the Swiss chard, yellow around the tomato. These colors help show you what crop families each plant is a part of and which plants are related. The cabbage, broccoli, kale, and arugula, you can see here, all have the same color. They're all part of the brassica family. And you can also see this by clicking on the info and crop rotation group, brassicas or cabbage family. Tomatoes, they're the Solanaceae, I'm not actually sure how you say that, but potato and tomato family. Now this is particularly helpful when you want to make a plan for the following year. So let's do that. Let's click on new plan, and I am still going to call it trial 2. but for 2019. And then make sure to click on follow on plan, leave it all checked off, press OK. And what you see here is a plan that has the exact same layout, as well as all the perennials, because it's assumed that if you've planted your perennials, you're probably leaving them in there for the next year. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and place some broccoli. And you'll see here the flashing red. That indicates where all the members of the brassica family were the previous year. So my arugula was here, my broccoli, kale. So what this plan is telling me is that I don't want to put a member of the brassica family in an area where a member of the brassica family was the previous year. And that is for crop rotation purposes. When you have the same family of crop in the same area year after year, that can cause a buildup of disease, or it can attract a lot of pests, and pests sort of learn where to find that particular crop. And so it's actually recommended that you want to plant your families in different areas each year so as to avoid that. So I do believe that I covered everything. I hope you found this helpful, and I definitely recommend trying the 7-day free trial. If you like this video, please hit like. If you know of anybody who might find this helpful, please share. And if you'd like to see more of what I do, please subscribe. Until next time, stay wildly green.